Welcome to All Sides with Anna Staver. When we go to the polls this November, we should all feel confident that our elections are secure and that every vote will be counted. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of democracy. They give legitimacy to our governments, accountability to our people, and trust to our institutions. But today, only 37% of Americans believe the 2024 election will be both fair and open. 43% of us say we have serious doubts about its upcoming integrity, which is why we here at All Sides are devoting the next hour to election integrity. And we begin with a new organization created to ensure trust in our election results. It's called the Democracy Defense Project. And the face of this information campaign in Ohio are former Republican Secretary of State Ken Blackwell and former Democratic U.S. Representative Zack Space. Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Space, welcome to All Sides.
Good to be with you.
Can you start by explaining what the Democracy Defense Project is and how each of you were recruited to the campaign?
The Democracy Defense Project is at its heart dedicated to making sure that our system is transparent and that it is also willing to speak truth into the system. There are a lot of false narratives that are associated with elections, and we hope to be truth tellers in a bipartisan way because we fundamentally believe and understand that in our constitutional republic, where voters have direct power to select those who govern, we have to have confidence and full engagement, maximum engagement of citizens in the process. So that's what we're here to do, is to make sure that we shine lights in dark corners, beat back false narratives, and give not only transparency but belief in the integrity of the system.
And that's right. And in your intro, you talked about the electoral process being the cornerstone of our democracy, and it's absolutely essential that we maintain faith in that. And what we, Ken and I, and the organization that we are here on behalf of, what we bring is a bipartisan perspective. Oftentimes you hear allegations around the integrity of the electoral process, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, coming from one side or the other of the political spectrum. And the effort here is to provide reassurance to voters made by folks who have been involved in the process over the course of many years to let them know that, look, your vote will be counted. It will be counted accurately. We have the most efficient, most accurate, safest, most transparent voting process in the entire world. And it's something we should be celebrating, not denigrating.
So 7 states were initially chosen by the Democracy Defense Project, and the other 6 are battleground states. Why do you think they picked Ohio as number 7?
Well, because I think we're going to have, in the senatorial race, we're going to have a hotly, aggressively contested election. And we want to make sure that people understand the strength, transparency of our system so that however that election turns out, that people have confidence that it was a decision of the electorate.
What would you say is the goal of the project? Is it establishing trust, ensuring integrity? Like, what is the main force behind this?
The main force is, again, to reinforce confidence in the process. We are not, getting involved in the details associated with the rules and the regulations associated with the electoral process. We have a very distributive electoral process in this state, in this country. Some states handle some of those rules and regulations differently than others. That's not where we come in. Basically, what we are advocating for is, like in a football or a baseball game, when an umpire or referee makes a call, you may dispute that call, but once that decision is made, it's done. Let's move on to something else. And there is nothing more important in terms of our ongoing ability to govern in this country as a representative democracy than restoring faith and instilling faith in the electorate.
And we really do have a much easier track to run than a lot of other states, given the way Ohio's electoral system and election administration system is structured. You know, we have 88 counties, 88 county boards of elections, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans on each of those boards. And for the most part, folks get along, make tough calls. But look, this is a human enterprise. You do have irregularities. You do have missed calls, keeping with the baseball analogy. But we have a system that allows us to play that out, and as you know, we've tried to establish. Once that call is made, let's get on with it.
We also want to take your calls this hour. If you have questions about our election process or about voting, we're going to be taking them later this hour. You can give us a call at 614-292-8513, or you can email all sides at wosu.org. Ken, I want to talk about 2020 because you question the results of the 2020 election, going so far as to sign a group statement from the Conservative Action Project declaring Donald Trump the, quote, lawful winner of that election. Do you still believe that to be true?
Oh, I believe that at that time there were points that we were contesting across probably about 5 states. And we took our position going into the whole adjudication process. But once the call was made, once Biden was declared the winner, we in fact said he was the winner, period. You know, so that's why when I go back and say, look, there are going to be the points that are debated and adjudicated. That happened when in 2004, I had 38 suits against me and our election system in Ohio, saying that George Bush had not earned the right to those electoral college votes. Well, we played it out, we won, and people got on with the program.
Zach, I was going to ask about that because in 2004, we did have members of Congress here in Ohio who denied that George Bush had won the state. Do you feel like this is problematic no matter which party it's coming from?
Absolutely. Obviously, most recent allegations and probably the most severe allegations that have occurred around the integrity of the process have occurred since 2020. But this is a process that's been going on for many years, and what we don't want is for this to become common practice. Every election system, we have people objecting to the results or contesting the results even after their legal appeals have run out. So, again,
we don't want people to think this is Venezuela.
Right.
Right. So yeah, look, it doesn't matter what your party is. It doesn't matter what your policy positions are. Ken's a Donald Trump supporter. I'm a Kamala Harris supporter. He and I differ on a lot of policies. But there's one issue that we can agree on, and that is that these elections are transparent, efficient, effective, and safe.
So I remember the 2000 election when the U.S. Supreme Court decided who won Florida and ultimately who won the presidency. I think it was a watershed moment for us, and I wonder, do you think that's what set off this modern couple of decades of questioning election integrity?
So I don't know if that's what set it off. I give Al Gore a lot of credit for doing exactly what we have been advocating for, and that is when an election is called, you accept the results and you move on. I think in the more recent iterations of claims of election fraud, oftentimes are stimulated and stirred by this growing, massive social media network where conspiracy theories are allowed to run rampant. So I do think the way we communicate, the way we consume information has changed significantly in the last couple of decades. And one of the casualties of that cannot be the integrity of our electoral process.
And let me just say why that's so important, because if you let that catch and spread like a wildfire, what you get is disengagement by the electorate. And instead of having us approach 75% participation, 85% participation, 90% participation, what we get is something south of 50%, and that starts to eat away again at the vibrancy of the system.
We got an email from Francis, who is concerned that wants to know if Trump doesn't win this time around, and we're not going to predict, I'm not going to ask you guys to call the election right now, but how much money do you guys worry about how much money will be spent verifying these election results? That no matter who wins, we're going to end up in a lot of litigation after November.
I don't think you can change the fact that we are a litigious society, and there are a lot of folks who are spending money now litigating beforehand. And so, yes, I again, Zach and I have used the baseball analogy. I mean, you're going to get close calls, and you're going to get folks who will argue the umpire's call. But sometimes with replays, the call is changed. Sometimes the call is kept in place. That's what we're not going to have a non-litigious election. Particularly if it's close. You know, I would hope either side has a margin of victory that's too big to rig.
Yeah.
and if you do that, you know, it's game over. But I think it's going to come down to, look, we have 3,100 counties. We have hundreds of thousands of precincts. We have 5 to 7 targeted states right now. This is probably going to come down to a very narrow margin, what I used to call the margin of litigation, within the margin of litigation.
Yeah, my favorite fact about how elections get decided is that when there's a tie, and that usually only happens in city races, local races, but when there's ties, every community has a different rule. Some people roll dice, some people draw from decks of cards, some people flip coins. The adjudication of ties is wild.
Well, I served on a local board of elections and totally get that. But our sincere hope is that we don't have to flip a coin to decide.
Could you imagine doing that for a state? Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I can't imagine Harris and Trump having to draw from a deck of cards.
Yeah.
That would be terrible. But it is a strange way of deciding elections. You know, another listener question that we received earlier was, how important do you think it's going to be for state and local officials to certify the results after November? There's been a lot of consternation, Zach, about whether we're going to get certification from certain officials in certain places.
I am confident that the system will work and that we will see certification broadly. Look, this nonprofit was created in large part in response to what happened after the 2020 election. We saw that actually, you know, there was clear foreshadowing in advance of that election, as some politicians were claiming that the election was rigged even before the election happened. So as to set the stage, we are committed to pushing back against that now, and we are committed to pushing back against that post-election day in November, if need be.
I was going to ask that. So what is your game plan for now until the election, and then what are you guys going to do after the election?
Well, the game plan now is to help people to understand that the system is better when they are engaged. If you're not in the room, you're not in the game. And so I think it's important that folks continue to become poll watchers, poll workers.
Ohio is looking for poll workers.
That's right. Be engaged. You know, there's a biblical saying that those who would do evil love the darkness. You know, and so we each have a responsibility through our human agency and our constitutional right to vote to be engaged in the system. That's how we speak to those who we elect to govern us. it's a unique system, the one that we've had now for 250 years. And somebody said it. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. It's a republic if we can keep it. And so that really does mean that we have to encourage in engagement. And Zack, and I have partnered up to say, look, we have bipartisan faith in the system. We are shining our lights in the dark corners to make sure it's transparent, and we're willing to be champions of, accept the results in January when it is certified, and all of the back and forth has been exhausted. That person will be the president of the United States, and it's time to get busy to save this republic.
And if I could just add to that, so shining the light in the dark matters. I think what makes this effort particularly effective and important is that we're going to be both shining lights in the dark. And I think that to answer your question, what we intend to do, things like this, to talk to the public. When Zack Space walks into a room and starts to say something about election fraud, or Ken Blackwell walks into a room and starts to say something about election fraud, in and of themselves, it's one thing. But when we do it together, it's setting a standard. It's letting people know that, look, the tribalism that we've begun to experience in this country in recent years has been, in my opinion, shockingly abysmal. I think it has denigrated politics and in many ways our culture. We cannot allow that tribalism to transcend the importance of the election process. So we'll be doing things like writing op-eds, doing interviews like this, and spreading the word any way we can that, to Ken's point, we want you to get engaged. Your vote will count, and sitting at home and not voting because you don't have faith in the process is not a valid excuse.
That was former Democratic Ohio Congressman Zack Space. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Anna.
And thank you to former Ohio Republican Secretary of State Ken Blackwell.
Thank you so much.